All right. The head of the Maui Emergency Management Agency, Herman Andaya, stepped down over the agency's decision not to activate the emergency sirens during the wildfires that engulfed Maui last week. Of course, we've been covering on the show. It was just horrific, a horrible tragedy. Many people have still not been located. The death toll is over 100 people. And he had previously defended his choice not to activate the sirens, explaining he was concerned it might prompt people to flee toward the fires. Okay, I'm being told by control. I was going to say we have a video, but apparently we don't. Okay, we don't have a video at this moment. But it's interesting because you have this official resigning because of this bizarre decision not to sound the emergency siren. And then you also have a deputy director of Hawaiian Water Commission who may have delayed access to more water resources during the fires, which I don't know, sometimes you need. I feel like maybe you need water during fires to put the fires out. And that deputy director was worried about water equity previously. So there's a lot of really weird things going on in Hawaii. Okay, do we have this? Okay, we have this official explaining why he did not sound the alarm. Watch.
Do you regret not sounding the sirens?
I do not. And the reason why...
So many people said they could have been saved if they had time to escape. Had a siren gone off, they would have known that there was a crisis emerging. And as we know, so many bodies were found in the ground as the flames caught their heels.
Give me the answer. The sirens, as I mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis. And that's the reason why many of them are found, almost all of them are found, on the coastline. The public is trained to seek higher ground in the event that the siren is sounded. Had we sounded the siren that night, we're afraid that people would have gone Mauka. And if that was the case, then they would have gone into the fire. By the way, I should also note that there are no sirens Mauka or on the mountainside where the fire was spreading down. So even if we sounded the siren, it would not have saved those people on the mountainside, Mauka.
It still seems weird to me because if you're talking about in the evening, you're talking about at nighttime. I saw that fire very clearly. It seemed like the camera was from very far away, and I still saw the fire. So it does seem weird that you would be scared that someone would be running into what looks like right there. I mean, if I see a fire, I'm not running towards it. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, you could try to empathize with the logic there, but you'd have to also dismiss so many other things,
right.
Like, I guess, human beings acting in their own self-interest. And when you see, I guess the sirens are to let them know that something crazy is going on or
right.
something wild is going on. And then once they maybe go outside, they would see, okay,
right.
What would they do? Now, if you wanted to make the argument that, well, this would have sent people into panic, which would have made the problem worse, then make that. But the position that, well, people would have started just I guess dispelling of all logic and started running to where everything's on fire is silly. You
right.
know what I mean? That was not a logical.
Wouldn't they like turn on their TV to watch the local news?
You would
and
have
see
to be
what's
under
going
a
on?
rock. But even then, like I said, even if the idea is like, okay, well, something's happening, right? And then you go outside and then, just, again, human action, basic human action. I guess he's not giving those human beings enough credit to them, like, figuring out, okay, they're letting us know something is wrong, and then with our own eyes we can see that there's a fire.
Right.
So again, not that good of logic, because he didn't make the argument that I guess could have been made that, yeah, maybe it would have sent people in a frenzy, and if he sends people into a frenzy, maybe they start scattering around and then more people end up dying out of that. It's not the argument that it is that he made. I hate to hear stories like this because we're going to sit here as armchair quarterbacks all day long and sit up and say who would have, could have, and should have, and what they should have done. We always do this, certainly after these sort of disasters. So again, I try to empathize with this because when this even happens, let's say more closer to home, definitely with hurricanes, we always do that. It's like, well, these people should have done, hell, we did with Texas, this freeze that happened not too long. It's like, oh, well, they should have done this and they should have done that. And I just hate that stuff like this is always, you have to entrust people to do their jobs, to save the lives of hundreds, perhaps thousands of folks. And when they do drop the ball, it is catastrophic. Whenever, no matter what that is, be it freezing, be it a hurricane, tsunami, earthquake, no matter what it is, it's like you're dependent on these people to do their jobs. They don't have to do it often. There may be several years where they ever have to be activated. But if they fail, you know it's going to be catastrophic. And unfortunately, this is one of those situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, depending on government for any of this stuff is always a bad idea.
Oh yeah, every time.
It never works out. Of course, when they promised you they have all these safety things in place, and then they don't actually happen. I think it's okay to get fired up about it and ask questions and figure out why. I mean, at some level, if he's telling the truth, it's a judgment call. I think quite clearly he did not make the right judgment call, however. And it does seem like these sirens are used for more than just tsunamis, though he said primarily tsunamis. But you're right, like in the middle of the night, the sirens go out. What do? You walk outside, you look around, what the hell's going on? Oh my gosh, there's a giant fire there. That must be what this is.
It's that direction.
It's that direction. Let's not run that way, right? Like I think that happens. Everyone makes that judgment. We had Tulsi Gabbard on the show today, talking to her about this, and this used to be in her district. And she was, she knows this really, really well, of course, and was incredibly passionate about this. And we brought up this point, like, hey, they're saying, like, shouldn't have set these sirens off because of X, Y, and Z. They're going to run into the fires. She lost it on that point. She's like, that is just not true.
Yeah.
That's not how this works. She knows that area super well. She was so fired up that she actually would have had the swear. She actually dropped an S-bomb in the middle of a radio interview. We had to dump her. We had to dump a former congressman on the air. But she also talked about why it's taking so long. And we kind of went into the interview a little skeptical. Hey, what the heck is taking so long to go through this? She described the process that they are going through right now, and it totally turned me around on that. I mean, it is. I don't even want to go through all of it because it was revolting, but you should really go back. Just the things they are needing to do just to get bodies, not identify what they are or who they are, but to figure out in a pile of just burned rubble what is a body and what isn't. It's dependent almost entirely on these dogs, so they've had to import some of them from the mainland. I mean, it is a horrible situation, and as much as you don't want to let people, you want people to go back and look at their houses, what can they do? They want to file insurance claims. They're still in the middle of this process, and it's going to be a really long process just to figure out where the bodies are, how many there are. She talked about, you think about like a boutique hotel in this town that's filled with 3 floors of people, and who knows how many of them got out? Yeah. I mean, and how are you going to separate that out? It is one of the worst things we've had to deal with for a long time. So, I mean, I'd encourage people to go back and listen to it was on Glenn Beck Radio today with Tulsi Gabbard. It was fascinating and horrifying at the same time.
Yeah. And I don't want to downplay the significance of that because it really is horrific what happened. But I also would like to just note the significance of all of the theories on how this happened and why this happened, and perhaps was this the government? Did the government have anything to do with this? And I don't want to speculate on that, but I do want to note how sad it is that we're living in a society in which, any sort of trust that we have had in the government and any of the government agencies has just been completely eroded. There's just none left, because anytime something like this happens, people go like, well, how did the government have something to do with this? I mean, is there anything that's happened recently, any tragedy that's happened recently that people haven't started saying that?
I don't think that's a bad thing, and I really don't. But my problem is that we take with that information and we don't act accordingly. Because what ends up happening inevitably, it's like, well, the government should be doing more. See, that's where I split people.
Right.
This is why I always say, I make conservatives, and I probably heard me make this argument with them a lot. It's like, just being on the same side of you on an issue ain't good enough, right? That's not good enough. Anybody can sit up there and identify a problem. So just because we make this point with libertarians all the time, like definitely, particularly with the left, like, okay, they identified that right there, the government shouldn't do that. What is the proposed solution? Right. And oftentimes their proposed solution is that, well, we should entrust them with more. And it's like, wait a minute. You just saw what they did with the power it is that you entrusted with them. So it's so frustrating because you think that the American people are on the brink of understanding it, why centralization in this context is a terrible idea. But unfortunately, solution, and it also gives that, let's say, that segue to a lot of people that run on this. Like, hey, if you vote for me and you support me, something like this won't happen because all of my guys are going to come in and we're going to fix it right on up. That is not the solution. The solution is to how do we get whatever power it is that is entrusted in you, that you have shown that you do not have the intellectual capacity to do, and no individual does, to make decisions on behalf of hundreds of thousands of people. That's impossible. How do we somehow get that out of your hands and into the hands of other individuals? And let's see who can come up with the creative solutions. So I wish the American people would come to that solution as opposed to being like, well, let's get the government more power.
Can I give one example of this? Because this is, I'm fired up on this, and Eric may be one of 5 people in America that will agree with me on it. So let me take this out here.
Hurry, please.
One of the big stories is that the governor is now saying, I can't believe these speculators are coming in. They want to buy up this land. They want to buy up this land. We're gonna change the law and make it so mainlanders are not allowed to buy the land of these people. And I keep thinking to myself, let's say I'm a 75-year-old woman. I've survived this fire. I've watched my entire town, my homeland disappear. Maybe I don't want to stay for the whole rebuild.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know what, I want to go live with my daughter who lives in Idaho. Maybe I want to get the hell out of here, and maybe I want that money from those speculators. Who are you to make the decision for these homeowners that they are not allowed to sell their own personal property? We see the same thing with people like, oh, well, I can't believe these tourists are still coming in. Well, what about these places on the other side of the island that weren't even affected by this? Do they have to destroy their businesses and have no tourists come in for surfing lessons for the next 6 months? Does that make any sense? All it does is make this worse. And of course, it's the government getting involved, so you can guarantee that's the outcome.
Yeah. Amen.
If you like that clip, there is plenty more where that came from. Click the link in the description below to subscribe to the News and Why It Matters YouTube channel to watch the full episode.